Hi, everybody. I see Christopher in the chat. I see Lorraine in the chat. Can you guys let us know if you can hear us? I see Derek too. Hi, Derek.
I'm always so tempted to do a fake out and just pretend like.
That's so mean. Oh my goodness. Okay, we have so many people joining us. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to join us for our Careers at Labs event. We're super excited to get started and tell you guys all about some of the careers we have here at Labs, as well as give you the opportunity to hear from one of our co-founders, Nathan Hughes, and a panel of our labbers who are going to share a little bit about their experience working with us here at Labs. We're going to hold off for a couple of minutes just to let some people trickle in and get into the event. So while we're waiting, all the hellos are super welcome. I saw some people telling us, sharing where they're from. If you want to share a fun fact about yourself in the chat, we'd love to get to know you guys a little bit. In the meantime, my name is Rowan, and I'll be your host today. And I'm joined by colleagues Pedro and Nicole. We're all part of the talent specialist team here at Labs, and we're so excited to see you. Hi, Jackie. I just saw Jackie say hello in the chat. Jackie's also a colleague of ours. But we are super excited, and we'll probably get started here in just about a minute after people are kind of done trickling in and joining us. Fun fact about Derek Quinn, he has a dog named Matilda.
Anyone have a dog named Matilda?
I would be impressed if someone else in attendance had a dog named Matilda. Hi, Guillermo. How are you? Lots of new names that I have not seen before. So excited to welcome you all to our CoLabs community. Let us know, too, if this is your first event, because we're super excited to welcome you to your first CoLabs event if you've never joined us before. I see Kitty Garrison in the chat. Hi, Kitty. All righty. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start getting us kicked off for the day today. As people keep joining us, of course, we'll welcome them and say hello. But first and foremost, if you've just joined, I want to thank you so much for being here with us tonight. We're very excited for this CoLabs event. And if you're not familiar with our CoLabs community, CoLabs is a community of developers that was created by Detroit Labs to kind of help developers in the community come together, network, learn from each other, and receive mentorship from our developers here at Detroit Labs. So we host monthly events, usually on the last Wednesday of the month. And typically we do those in our Discord server where we're just kind of hanging out. But we wanted to do something a little bit different this month and give you guys a little bit of a glimpse into what it's like to work at Detroit Labs, because we have a lot of really exciting job opportunities available right now. We wanted to share that with all of you. I see Charles in the chat. Hi, Charles. Before we get started, we're going to walk you through a couple of things. Before we get into the agenda and all of that, I do want to have the team introduce themselves really quickly. So I'm joined here tonight by my colleagues, Pedro and Nicole. We're all part of the talent specialist team here at Labs. Pedro, would you like to kick us off with an introduction to you?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Pedro. As Rowan mentioned, I'm also a talent specialist alongside her and with Nicole as well. What we get to do is we get to recruit and source talent for our open positions with Detroit Labs, previously focusing on onsite, but as you'll hear tonight, focusing on just about all the open roles that we have available with Detroit Labs right now. I'll hand it off to Nicole.
Thanks, Pedro. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Minato. I am the talent specialist team lead here at Detroit Labs. I have been here just over 3 years and work with Pedro and Rowan so closely, and they're so wonderful, doing a lot of things like building relationships with folks, helping them learn more about labs, learn more if it's a place that's interesting to you. Yeah, so happy to be here, and we're excited because this is the first time we're doing this type of event. So we hope you all enjoy it with us.
Absolutely. Thank you both for sharing a little bit about you. And I gave a bit of an introduction to myself, but I'm also a talent specialist here at Labs. Been here a little over a year and a half, and Pedro and I started together. So he's like my buddy here at Labs. And I do all the same things that he does, but we also all work together to do this collabs community that we get to share with you all tonight. So we're really excited to have everyone. I'm going to take a minute really quickly to walk through the agenda so everybody can know what to expect as far as what's going on at this event tonight. So right now, we're doing our kickoff. We're telling you a little bit about how things are going to be. That's going to be about the first 10 minutes of our time together tonight. After the kickoff, I'm going to bring in our co-founder, Nathan Hughes. He's going to tell you a little bit about the culture here at Detroit Labs, some of the work that was put in to make that culture happen, and how we kind of foster growth within our employees at the company. So he'll be talking to you for about 20 minutes. And then after that, we're going to bring in a panel of our team members from Detroit Labs. So these team members come from a variety of jobs here at Labs. We've got developers, delivery leads, QA, and they're all going to talk to you about what it's like to even work here at Detroit Labs. One of our goals tonight was to sort of break down that wall, as Nicole likes to put it so eloquently, that kind of stands between you and a company, right? So we want to be pretty visible about what we're like as a company, what the experience is like working here, and what the day-to-day on any particular job role might look like for you if you're interested in working with us. So after that panel, Nicole, Pedro, and I will jump back in, and we're going to tell you about some of the open roles that we have available at Detroit Labs right now that we are currently looking to fill. So we'll tell you more about what you can do to apply, what roles are open at the moment, and some things that we look for in candidates as well when we're looking to make a hire. So after that, the last piece of the evening tonight is two parts. So there are going to be two things happening simultaneously. The first is optional one-on-one networking. If you look over on the left-hand side of your screen, you should see two hands kind of shaking in networking. When you want to join that, it's going to put you one-on-one with a person in attendance at the event for 3 minutes, and you'll have 3 minutes to chat with them, get to know them. There's an option for you to exchange contact information if you'd like as well, and that's totally optional. But it's just for you to get to know some other people in attendance, maybe make some new connections out there in the tech field. And simultaneously happening alongside that is a Q&A with myself, Pedro, and Nicole, where we can answer any questions that you have about the hiring process, open jobs, what you can do to work with labs, or anything you want to know in general about the company or anything like that. So that's kind of the overview of the day today. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has in the Q&A at the end of the night. Outside of that, are we ready to get started? Sweet. All right, I'm going to have Nicole and Pedro leave, and I'm going to do a brief introduction into our co-founder, Nathan Hughes, before I bring him on the stage to talk to you guys. So as one of the co-founders here at Detroit Labs, Nathan has been with the company since its inception 10 years ago. His career in technology started with doing data entry for a trucking company where he would type information from faxes into an ordering system. And while working at a computer lab in college, Nathan worked through higher levels of responsibility and eventually started working as a database administrator. Nathan began programming around 2001 and worked professionally for years until he was hired to lead software teams, and then eventually came to the opportunity to help Detroit Labs come along back when we got founded. So as our chief people officer, Nathan describes his role as technology adjacent with his years of tech experience, providing understanding and context to various situations that we have come up at Detroit Labs. When not working with our Detroit Labs team members, Nathan has been diving into working with 3D printers, woodworking, painting models and miniatures, and he describes himself as a huge tabletop gamer. So chat, please welcome our co-founder, Nathan Hughes.
Well, hello. I had no idea that the purpose of that thing I wrote for you was for you to read it to the folks. So thank you, Rowan.
You're welcome.
Very much for that. I might have edited it up a little bit, but I guess that's me now. So now everyone knows it. Hi, everyone. I'm Nathan. Co-founder and chief people officer. Rowan asked me to say a few words, I don't know, maybe a month ago about Labs, which is one of my favorite topics, obviously. And Labs, if you don't know, is a services company. As Rowan said, we've been around for about 10 years. We have offices in Detroit and Ann Arbor, about 175 people. And I sort of thought, well, we want to talk about culture. We want to talk about how this got built. We want to talk about sort of that story. And then I I think I decided, and I don't know, hopefully this doesn't mess with you too much, Ron, but I thought maybe we go back to some nuts and bolts about this. Because what I found myself doing a lot recently with a lot of folks inside of labs and outside is talking about services companies and services work as a thing and answering a lot of questions of like, what is this and why and how? And so I want to talk about sort of the nuts and bolts of services work, the thing that we decided to do when we decided to build Detroit Labs and grow Detroit Labs. So what services work? Detroit Labs is hired by large companies at this point, large companies to work on projects for them. And so when we talk about services work, we're talking about work that we're doing on behalf of another company, another client, another department, another person. And the idea around services work are the people that come to us for services work. They generally fall into a couple camps. They fall into the we don't know how to do this and we want your help to start us off. Or they fall into we have this thing that we need done, but we don't have the people to do it or the teams to do it, or we don't have the resources, or we want to do more. And so we're getting called in order to help either companies build something that they're unable to do because they don't maybe have the necessary skill, necessary expertise, necessary number of people to do it. They've never delved into these kinds of things before. And there's a lot of pros, and there's, of course, cons to doing services work. And when you think about the industry overall and there's services work, and what's the obvious normal thing that falls on the other side of it is product. So there's companies like us that do services. There's companies that do product work in software, and there's pros and cons there. But I sort of wanted to spend a little bit of time and just talk about some of the pros and the cons of services work, because I assume that you're up in this what has happened? You're up in the video chat here to understand and try and figure out and maybe interview Detroit Labs before interviewing and applying for a job. And I think it'd be useful to maybe understand what that work does. Does it make sense, Rowan? You like that? Yeah. Is this I don't know if it's interactive, me. I'm supposed to talk to you or not.
You totally can, and I think you're absolutely right. That starting there is a great place to start for a conversation like this.
Great. So we, as a services company, the way we're set up, we have a couple business units, but the way we're set up is we accept projects, and then we start working on projects for other companies. And so when you're a services, when your career, when your job is services, a couple things are happening to you, and a couple things happen in your career over and over and over again. There is first a wide variety of projects that you may get tapped to work on. Different technologies, different industries, different demographics. And a lot of times you don't have a lot of visibility to what's coming, so you might get surprised. So what this means is you might be, if you're a designer, you're QA, you're a delivery lead, project manager, you're a developer, you might work on, for the first 6 months of a year, something that's in finance. And then you might work on another project, and that might be in a construction kind of zone. And then you might work on a project that's very data heavy. Then maybe you work on a project that is a brand new product launch for a brand new company who's never been out there before. And then maybe you work on, but there's all these projects, and there's a huge variety of projects that show up. And what that gives to you, if you're in that space, is a wide range of experience in all sorts of different projects and all sorts of different markets, verticals, demographics, so on. I like to think, I used to work in a marketing company. It was a marketing services company, and I would learn, it wasn't so useful, but we would do like 20, 30, 40 projects a month, small. And I would learn so much about roofing one project, and then insulation, and then maybe like hardware, buying hammers, and then maybe jeans and all that stuff. What's sort of nice, and Detroit Labs works sort of in a different industry. So instead of that kind of very specific focus thing, you might be working in a very database centric or a data centric sort of application at one time. And then you might work in a very customer service. You're trying to sell more things easier, make it easier for people to buy things with a mobile app, or maybe you're working on something that's doing emergency response for all these different ways. And that experience is for a lot of people, it's incredibly important, incredibly powerful, incredibly satisfying to be involved in and getting those kinds of things. You get, within a services company, you get access to a wide range of clients as well. And so one of the downsides, and we'll talk about this, is you're doing a lot of work for another client, and that's absolutely a con. But one of the pros is you get to, and if this, especially if you're a relationship type person, you are going to be introduced and work with all sorts of different project teams across all sorts of different companies and beyond just Detroit Labs. And you'll make contacts and networks and friends and folks that you'll meet that you'll, if you're that kind of person, you're that type, that you might call up when you're traveling or call up when you're in a different area. And like, I know a lot of services folks, they thrive on some of these relationships. If you're not that kind of relationship, you're still building these relationships with folks that, oh, you know, this kind of tech. Oh, I worked with this person who was great in this thing, and I'm going to call them up or email them, or maybe we're on the same gaming Discord. Who knows? All these different. The access to the clients becomes a huge benefit. And also the access to the clients requires anyone that's in services to develop a lot of really good communication skills and expectation management skills, feedback skills. How do you interact with and communicate effectively with all sorts of different kinds of people? And kinds, I'm meaning like very technical or not technical at all, very business, very high level when they're thinking, very low level when they're thinking. As a services professional, you're going to be expected to be able to communicate and convey ideas across. So you get a lot of practice doing that. And that is the kind of practice that pays off in huge dividends in your career over and over, as you're able to communicate across a wide variety of people and different teams, different layers in the organization. There's a wide variety, sort of related to that, wide variety of learning that happens. You have your different projects, of course, your different clients, of course, but also your technologies change much more often when you're a services professional. If you're in a product company, you're going to go very deep and very specialized, and that's great. Like, there's nothing bad about that, wrong about that. But if you're in a services company, you're going to be interacting with the next client and the next company's API or their technology stack or their design system and stuff like that. And the practice necessary to start up a team, going to a brand new client with a brand new team of Detroit Labs team members that you're surrounded with and then interacting with. A lot of people don't do that more than, once a year, maybe twice in a career sometimes. I talked to like my wife's dad. He started at DTE when he was 16 and he retired from DTE when he was like 70. And that doesn't happen a lot anymore. But some people, you get that whole, I'm going to start the brand new team, brand new project, all that excitement, all that. You don't get that often. Services companies, you sometimes get that a couple times a year, maybe more. And the ability to go through that and the learning that you have to do those kinds of activities, very powerful, very somewhat rare, but also very important to start to think about this as that's what services work is when you're trying to make sure you're aligning yourself with the kind of career, the kind of work day to day that you want to do, which means if you're someone that doesn't want that kind of new learning or doesn't want to rebuild a team relationship every once a year or something like that, think about that. Like this is a requirement kind of thing. There's of course cons. So services work breeds generalization, breeds this wide array of familiarity with a wide array of either technologies or systems or mechanisms for managing projects, whatever, all these. A product company or a different kind of company will provide a lot more opportunities for specialization. And so if you are more the type that wants to go very, very deep into one kind of maybe technology, one kind of language, one kind of design style, if you want to spend 10 years doing illustration in a certain style and format, services work might not easily provide that kind of thing to you. So one con is there can be less depth and less specialization within a services work. Another con, you have less control over what's showing up in a company like ours and in most services companies, because a service company might specialize in an industry. We do large projects for large companies with large with large annual revenue in mobile and web, which is a wide slice, but still there's less. The next project that we get, there's not necessarily, if I want to just only do finance work, I might not have that. And there's there's sort of a personal kind of con where working for a services company, there's less of that natural social recognition or network recognition. Because when you go out and you say, hey, I work at GM or I work at Ford, I work at Amazon, everyone's going to know that. Like everyone's probably heard of those things. So if you work in those big companies, there's a thing. And for some people, that's very important, very powerful. If you work for someone like us and you say, oh yeah, I work at Detroit Labs, I'm on the Jimmy John's, I'm on the GM project, I'm on the, it might not be as, I don't know, satisfying. So it's something to think about. And so why would anyone choose services? We got these pros, we got these cons. What you go into, or what might you consider if you're trying to decide, is this the right move? Is this the, I think one thing that you want to sort of interrogate yourself on, and what kind of and how much problem solving do you like to do? Because services work is at its fundamental nature a problem solving career. And you could say, yeah, every career is problem solving. But I think services brings a unique slant to it because you are very regularly problem solving in sort of new or maybe unfamiliar territory. And I love that. That's why I've been doing it for 25 years, whatever, 2021 minus 1992. So whatever that is, that's why I've been doing it that long, because I love that. But I also know that that isn't something that everyone loves. Some people, that's exhausting. It's tiring. But if that's something like problem solving and new problem solving, and then being exposed to people in different organizations that problem solve differently or have different tools or show you and learn, and you can learn from in different ways. That's one reason you might want to choose a services sort of a career. I also think, and I choose service because I have a affinity. I sort of like the services mentality, the service mentality. Yes, I worked restaurant. I worked public. That whole service, I've gone through and done some of that, like very difficult working with the general public, but I also sort of love it. And so, I mean, your favorite bartender probably tells you the same thing. Oh, I hate the general public. That's why I've been doing it for 20 years of my life, right? The services mentality and technology, that there's a huge satisfaction and there's a huge purpose around me being able to interact with, and it's never the giant company. It's me interacting with the one client contact, the person that I'm interacting with directly, or with my team, the person in the team that I'm interacting with most regularly. And the service, building something for some other company or some other team or some other person's benefit, watching them succeed because of that, and then you succeeding because they're succeeding, and there's this natural, I sort of love that. It's very different than we're succeeding because we're selling more of this product that we're buying. And I don't love that as much. And so other people love it just as much. So there's no right or wrong. But I would think about, okay, the services mentality, if that seems like something that's appealing, a services project work or a services career seems pretty on brand. I love the variety. There's a huge variety. So I've talked about it a fair amount. I don't know what to do when I've done the same thing for 6 months. Like I literally don't know what to do anymore because I sort of want and need and thrive on the change or solving the problem or solving the new thing, or here's this new, and services always provides those opportunities or provides a path towards constant growth or constant challenge or constant change. And there's somewhat of an opportunity in a company like ours, in a services company, to pick and choose your growth, in the sense that sometimes it's just the project is what it is, but because every project is somewhat new and you somewhat start, somewhat shut down, there's a lot of chances for me to say, okay, I want to focus on maybe the startup pieces. I want to focus on how to gel the team in this time. And then next time, the startup, the next project, you know what? I want to really focus on this code sharing model, and I want to do different code reviews a completely different way and get very technical. Or I want to work on this API system, or I want to work on a design system that's reusable across team. There's many more opportunities to pick and choose that growth, because projects are starting and launching, or you're changing and things. And so the natural desire for education and for change is met by the business need for you to do that exact same thing. Any questions so far? How long do I have, Rowan?
You got until 6:30. You got 5 minutes left.
5 minutes. All right. So if I don't know if I can see the chat. You can see the chat. All right. I'm gonna stop for a second. Take one breath after I said all of that on one breath, and see if anyone has any questions.
Keep an eye on that chat for you. I think there's a little bit of a delay, so it might take a second for us to get our first question. Nothing yet. Nope.
All right. So then 4 minutes. So then you might say, oh, so you've built this software, we built a software services company. We do this services work, and I have these pros and cons in my head. So what do we do to sort of lean in and focus on and capitalize on that fact that we're doing these kinds of things? And Detroit Labs does a lot of different things, but I want to share one last idea about Detroit Labs that I use all the time when I'm trying to figure out, are we on the right path? Is this in alignment with the kind of company we want to build? Is this? I like to think of Detroit Labs a little bit like a learning lab. I used to think of it as like a medical hospital, a learning hospital that you'd see on TV. And then I realized I don't know enough about that to really use that as the metaphor, because maybe that's terribly negative or something. But obviously I'm still using it, so I don't learn any of my lessons. But I like to think of Detroit Labs as a place where we can try and experiment with a lot of different models. Because we have a lot of opportunities, right, to try it on one project and sort of a small, contain the risk and contain the consequence and see what happens, and then try it again. And so one of the benefits and one of the things that is my favorite bit about the Detroit Labs culture, and something that we use and rely on, is the ability within Detroit Labs for team members to learn and take on different either roles or responsibilities outside and unrestricted by the pure job description. And I know our talent specialists, Rowan, Pedro, Nicole, they've all done this as well. This isn't just a technology thing, it's an overall company thing. We have, everyone has a job title and everyone has sort of this area of focus and responsibility. But what we're able to do at Labs, and what is something that's very satisfying to me, is when we have problems and when we are trying to solve things, we've maintained and we've been able to, even at 175, people, much different than when we first started, we've been able to still maintain this idea of, we try to find really smart folks and folks with various backgrounds, and they've done interesting things and they've shipped different or created different things and all this kind of, that means that they probably have really good ideas across all these different problems that we're trying to solve as an organization, above and beyond just what is in front of them as their job. And so one of the culture things in Labs that I work on a lot to maintain and make accessible is this notion that when we have a problem, how can we make sure that it's an opt-in across the organization of anyone that might be interested in that problem, have insight into that problem, want to help solve that problem, beyond just, oh, this is my job description, so I'm the one that solves this problem. And other people have to do something else, and they shouldn't help me solve that problem. How do we get everyone's really good problem solving ideas, their brainstorming, their experience into solving the problems of our business, regardless of where those problems start and where those responsibilities lie? Another aspect of this learning lab or this learning hospital idea is that we have a program and a support team in place at Labs that has several times and continuously looks at retraining, reskilling, and also just moving people from one job to another. As a services, this is another benefit of a services company, you work with an integrated team very closely, and you see the kinds of things that those different roles might do. You might be a QA engineer working with a designer, and over the course of a couple of years realize, you know what, that's something that I've always had an interest in, or maybe I went to school for. Maybe that was something I wanted to do when I was a kid, and then I just never pursued it because that's how adulthood works sometimes. And at Labs, there's a path and there's a mechanism in order to explore that, to go out and not just sort of hobby around or play with it, but literally move your career into a whole different direction. And we've had plenty of people that have done that kind of thing. And finally, one of the things that drives this and keeps this, solidifies this culture is our apprenticeship program that you have probably all heard about. And beyond just I think an excellent training, education, and career possibility, what the apprenticeship program does in terms of culture is it forces and keeps a high priority within the entire organization on people that are learning things for the first time, and the rest of the organization needs to support that. A lot of times what might happen is a company will overlook or forget all of the value and all of the really important work that happens when peers help peers, and when peers train peers, and when peers are responsible for overall help, success, support of other peers. And notice I'm not saying seniors and juniors and levels and stuff. It's not that. It's much wider than that, because again, everyone is bringing experience and background and unique attitudes and to the table. And so, and it's not about tenure. Sometimes it is, but it's not about tenure. It's about the culture, and it's about the company having a way for folks to be able to participate and help and train and make actionable impacts across these different team members, different people that are learning, that are growing, that are developing either a new skill or a new career sides. With that, 6:32, I think I'm gonna shut up, and I'm gonna let the panel, who I'm very excited about, take the stage. Thank you, Rowan, very much for letting me chat.
Of course, and thank you, Nathan, for sharing a little bit more about what it is we do, why we do it, and kind of how that fits the needs of the people who work here at Labs, and how that caters to the things they're interested in, like problem solving, like working with new clients. Before you go, we did get one Q&A question. We moved on, and I want to make sure this person gets their question answered really quickly. So they asked about how many clients do you work with in a given year?
In a given year is tough because last year was completely different. What we've done year over year, and not counting sort of 2020, because we still don't know what the heck that is. We normally work with, I would say, 8 to 12 clients, and about 4 of those are large clients, and 8 of those are smaller clients. And then in a given year, we usually see 2 to 3 brand new clients show up with new projects. And Labs is the kind of company that has very long-term relationships. And so right now, I'd say 5 or 6 of our clients that we currently work with, we've been working with them for 6, 7, 8 years. And we're also there's a very common conversation as well that happens where a client will tell us, oh, you know what, we're going to be taking this thing in-house, or we're gonna, another company's bought us and they're going to do something different, and year after year it seems like that doesn't happen, or hey, we're going to shut this team down, so we're going to roll Detroit Labs off. And what'll happen more often than not is that team will shut down, and they will keep the Detroit Labs team onto a new project at that client because the relationship and that we built. So we are a services company, but we don't have that tremendous amount of client churn that sometimes happens. Like if you're familiar with marketing companies, it's a whole different industry. And so we don't have that kind of situation. It's fairly stable. I like to say 2020 is a complete mystery because I think what happened with 2020, I don't know if the specific number's in front of me, but I'm pretty sure with 2020, we didn't have any new clients at all. There was no new sales activity that I can really remember, but our existing clients, they exploded in how much they wanted us to work on and do. And we had a stable of clients that were very, very positive for the business, as well as working in areas that were very important as we moved into quarantine and pandemic. One of our large clients is Lineage Logistics, who does food storage and food safety kinds of activities, and they became a player within sort of the vaccine response and things like that. So we happen to be positioned very well, but that's the first year that's ever happened, and that feels very much like an outlier year.
Awesome. Thank you for taking some time to answer that too before you go.
My pleasure.
Pleasure having you too. Stick around if you want for the Q&A later and for the networking, but we're going to say goodbye to Nathan. Everybody put some applause in the chat for that awesome speech. And once Nathan is out, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in our panel of labbers who are going to chat with you about their experience here at Detroit Labs. So they're going to cover being a developer, being a delivery lead, being a QE here at Detroit Labs. So I'm going to bring them in just a second. Bye, Nathan. Catch you later. See all those applause. Thanks, everybody. All right. I'm going to go ahead and bring in my panel, starting with Chrissy. We've got Landel, Sean, and Amit joining us on the stage here in just a second. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. All right. Oh, Amit's here too. Awesome. Looks like we've got everybody here. To the audience, this is our awesome panel of labbers joining us to tell you a little bit more about their experience here at Detroit Labs. How this is basically going to work is I'm going to prompt them with a series of questions that we're going to ask to find out more about their experience here and just some of the work that they do at Labs. If we have any extra time at the end, we can ask them some questions from the audience as well. So I wanted to give you a heads up that the Q&A is completely anonymous. I'm the only one who sees it, so all of your questions will be anonymized. But if you want to drop questions in there, you can, and if we have time at the end, we will get to those. Before we jump into the questions, though, I want to have our panel introduce themselves to you. So I'm going to hand it off to Chrissy to go first. Tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, hello, everyone. I'm Chrissy. I'm a delivery lead here at Detroit Labs on the services side. I have been here for, oh my gosh, almost 3 years now. I'm so excited to talk to you all today and share how great Labs is and how great it is to be a delivery lead, because I would like more people to join my team.
Thank you so much. Sean, would you like to go next?
Yeah, my name is Sean Allen. My pronouns are they, she. My current role, I'm a quality engineer. I've been with Labs for just over 3 years, as of like this month, I think. I was professionally in the industry at this point 5.5, but I actually got started on a first robotics team in high school my sophomore year. I've been doing tech unprofessionally for about 10 years now.
Thank you for sharing. Amit, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thank you, Rohan. So yeah, my name is Amit Kumar. I have been with Detroit Labs from 2 years, and in 2 days, actually, I'm completing my 2 years. So I'm excited about that. I work as a software developer, so probably the on-site. So if you have heard Nathan saying on-site, so I'm in on-site software developer, so working for. Total experience as go in the industry before joining Detroit Labs is 6 years back in India, also back in here also, and along with 2 years of masters. So that's pretty much about me, and I'm excited to share my experience with you for more. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And certainly not least, Landel.
Hi. Yeah, I'm a front-end developer with Labs. I'm currently working on-site with a client. I guess 2 years of experience before starting with Labs, and then I worked for 2 years and then took a small break, moved out to the West Coast, and then started again. Been on this project for a little over a year now. So yeah.
Well, thank you all for giving our audience a little glimpse into who you are, what you do, and how long you've been in tech. Really appreciate y'all sharing that. I'm going to jump into some questions for you, and I'll probably prompt the first person to go first. But after that, if you want to jump in on a question, just feel free to jump in. So the first question I have for you guys is, how did you hear about us, and why did you decide to join Detroit Labs? Sean.
Cool. So I heard about Labs for actually a couple years before I joined from a close friend of mine, Scott Wilson, who is here at Labs. I don't know that he's here on this call, though. And he just was telling me about how it's a super fantastic place. And you'll probably hear me say this a lot, I'm a trans person, and for me, finding a place to work that felt safe was a really, really high priority for me. And I heard so many positive things about the culture at Detroit Labs that it was clear that this was a safe place for me where I could be myself and be supported. So that was a really huge draw for me.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Anyone else want to weigh in on this question? Where'd you hear about us?
Sure, I can go. So about this, I really Detroit Labs. And the first thing that attracted me was searching through the online LinkedIn. I was going through all the sites when I completed my master's. So it was a huge step for me to joining again back in industry. So the work culture was the main point for me to join back after master's, because previously had an experience, worked with a bunch of the large industries, small scale industries, but now was the time not looking for a large or small, but looking for a work culture. So that came into interest when I talked with one of our HR, that is Nicole. You already. So while talking to her, I was totally into that. Like, I never thought of coming to Detroit because I was in New York, and then I moved to California, West Coast, as everyone's software developer dream. That's a place for looking for jobs and everything. But after talking to her, that was really attracted me. And then I wanted to explore more. And then when I joined till date, I found it very loving and love the work culture. Even being an on-site developer, I still love this. So I still carry principles of Detroit Labs to the client, and Detroit Labs have always a back for me for these things. So yeah, pretty much I like it.
Amit, your relationship with Nicole as your talent specialist is like the model relationship between like the recruiter and the candidate. It's just so awesome to hear your story every time.
Thank you.
Of course. Anyone else, Christy, Landell, want to weigh in on this one before we move on?
I missed the mute button, which is the story of my work from home life. So I was a career changer before moving into tech, and I was exploring potentially going. I worked in higher education before, and I had heard about the apprenticeship program. It seemed really appealing for someone that was sort of in the position that I was in. But unfortunately for me at the time, when I was doing a lot of like sort of self-study on some basic programming knowledge, the apprenticeship program was like in a brief pause, and so it wasn't available. And so I was bummed by that. But I ended up pursuing one of the boot camp programs at Grand Circus. Got a job. My first job was in the 1520 building where Labs is housed, just on a different floor. And so I would, jealously ride in the elevator with Labs people. And I always sort of like thought like, oh man, that seems like a really fun place to work. And eventually it worked out. I, was there for about 2 years, and then applied for a job at Labs. And then when I was making the transition, Detroit Labs people actually turned my elevator badge on too early, and I could no longer get onto the floor that I worked on. I could only get onto the Labs floors a week before I started working at Labs. So I used to have to just like call people to ask for them to push the elevator button for me, because I would just be stuck. But yeah, so that's my Labs origin story, I guess.
Funny. Thank you so much for sharing that.
I can do mine really quickly. Pretty simple. I stalked Labs. I was at Grand Circus in a boot camp, and my cohort at the time, this was like, I think late 2016, there wasn't a huge tech scene in Detroit. So it was pretty much Quicken and Labs were the closest thing. So everyone's like, oh, I want to get into Labs after I graduate. I got to get into Labs. So I started like Googling. I read all these articles. I started stalking people on LinkedIn. I didn't apply yet, did another job. And then I ended up being connected with our former VP of People, Erica, and she was super sweet and welcoming and kind of put me in touch with other labbers, and we kind of connected, and just seeing that how like supportive labbers were just to people that they didn't even work with or know really made me want to go forth and apply and join this awesome community. So that's my story.
Awesome. I love everybody's origin stories and kind of connected to like why you joined. What's been your favorite part so far of working at Detroit Labs in your role? You can think about it for a second, but I am going to call on Landell to go first.
To get to the mute button again. I think my favorite part of Labs is that it's really a place where, like, if you want to grow and develop professionally, specifically in my case as a front-end developer, the resources are there and people encourage you to like step out of your comfort zones to explore and learn new things. It's also a place where you have to be self-motivated to like do those things because no one's standing over your shoulder and sort of like micromanaging that process for you. And so when I first started with Labs, I was a little like nervous about that because I'd worked in sort of like traditional management structure environments previously, and realized over time that it's really one that I like thrive in. If you see work that needs to get done, you go do that work, and then that sort of like keeps your whole team moving forward. And so I really appreciate that. And from a day-to-day technical, like doing the job aspect, that's definitely one of my favorite parts.
Feel free to just jump in, y'all. You don't need my permission, I promise.
Okay. So yeah, for me, there are many, to be honest. But the thing I love most is that Detroit Labs offers a transparent, communicative culture. And for like as a national employee, also like coming from a different country and everything, so there are immigration, these things apart from the work. So for these things, there were always a transparent response. Always I had, so being immigration stuff, so you have a lot of questions. So there was like Erica, you can directly contact to her, our former employee. So there was Karen. So they all were like easy to approach. And that is really a good point, I would say, for me to be like here with Detroit Labs and still for going forward. And I loved being to be here and getting answered those important questions. Yep.
I love how everyone is talking about stalking labs now, so that's fun. I would say my favorite part about my role is that no 2 days are exactly alike. Being a delivery lead, there's always something going on, whether it's like some client communication stuff or there's some team stuff to work out, just general labs things. There's always something there to keep you on your toes, and therefore I feel like I'm always constantly growing. And then as Nathan alluded to in his keynote, there are different projects. So you can kind of, you have that autonomy to kind of see what works on another project. You don't kind of just get stuck on a project for like the next 6 years or for however long you're at this job. So you can kind of move around, try different things, see how different clients interact with teams, how teams interact with different clients, and just start building like your own kind of tool belt that will help you along as you grow.
I'd say for me, I think the support of professional growth has been so great for like me as a QE, and support that I don't need to focus on just the sort of standard QE skill set. Like while I've been at Labs, I've learned 4 different programming languages. and that's been fully supported. And I feel like that is really awesome. So it's not necessarily a favorite part of my role, but favorite part of working at Detroit Labs is probably the ability to break out of that role and have a unique skill set. But in terms of for a role, I really enjoyed that the quality assurance team, all of us quality engineers, have, I feel like, spearheaded multiple initiatives at labs surrounding things like accessibility, automated testing, and just different process changes and things that we can do from our side. And just again, the support that we've gotten for those types of things from all roles and all levels within labs, and those have been really fantastic.
Awesome. Glad to hear about your wonderful and amazing experiences, but I am going to kind of switch that up and ask you about what's been the most challenging thing about your role at labs. So again, think about it for a second. I'm going to call on Amit to go first this time. What's something that's really challenging about your role?
Yes, thank you. So challenging is an interesting thing. So I would say maintaining the DL principles you carry when you join, because first interaction is with your Detroit Lab team members, HRs, managers, and everything the interview goes on. And then working as an on-site and carrying those principles in the work site culture. So wherever you are working in a client place, so there will be a gap. And but the interesting thing is that even though Detroit Labs is not like directly involved in those client things, but they are always there whenever you need a query, you are not heard by your manager in the client side. There is like some gap of documentation or anything, so you can just directly contact with your team members who are also Detroit Lab team members or other, and or your people partners, so to convey your message. So they are always helpful wherever you need help, they will be there. But yeah, that's a challenging thing in carrying your principles, which you would join when you join and you hear, and getting these. So I have worked with two clients. I recently changed in few months back. So there was gap. First client, I would say, was really focused on the work, but not like more into the documentation, because they were initial stages. So we faced those things. But now there's a challenge. I would say there's a lot. So in the new client space, so there will always be challenges. So these kind of challenges, but you have to balance out, and there will always be a Detroit Lab people's, either your people partner, either your software developers. You can reach out to them. So that's a really good thing for me. Yeah.
I'd say for me, the most challenging thing, and I think this is actually recently made a lot of progress on this as a company. When I started at Labs, we had 7 or 8 quality engineers or something like that. And I think for probably close to the first full 2 years, everyone was full-time on a project that entire time. And the consequence of that was that it was difficult to have anyone kind of dedicated to organizing role level efforts and being able to have we frequently do knowledge shares on the QA team. We do them monthly. We do a lot of different things. We have team fun things that we do, and it was difficult to have anyone really take ownership of those things when everyone had a full-time responsibility that always took priority. And recently that's really changed. The QA team has grown significantly, and we have more capacity over what we actually need for project work. And so that's really helped us. And we've also gone from being a strictly flat organization to having a little bit more intermediate leadership, having like managers for roles. And that has also been a huge help because now we have someone who's basically fully dedicated to doing exactly that, organizing. And it's been, I think, really beneficial.
I would say, the most challenging part of my role is probably keeping everything together and, trying to keep both parties happy, the team and the client, and just finding a balance of both of those. And it's an interesting challenge because, as we've mentioned, a couple of us have mentioned, these challenges kind of help us grow. So we're always finding new ways to overcome these challenges. So what might be a challenge one day can definitely change in the next if you kind of just work at it. But definitely finding that balance between advocating for the team and advocating for the client.
Awesome. Thank you for that. We only have about 4 minutes left. So I have a handful more questions that I want to be sure we get to. So I'm going to ask these next two to just one individual at a time. So what is it like working with Detroit Labs on-site? And I'm going to ask that question to Landell. So to someone who has never heard of on-site, worked with on-site, can you give us like a very high-level overview of what on-site is like and what your experience is working for on-site?
So I think in a traditional sense, the biggest difference from on-site is that you're not in 20 Woodward Avenue with the services people. So you may be, so in my case, I was assigned to, in my job, to a company in Detroit, and I went to their offices every day. And so on that team, we were comprised of like 8 other developers, and maybe 2 or 3 others might have been Detroit Labs people, and then 2 or 3 other people might have been from other staffing agencies scattered around. And some people were full-time employees of that company itself. And so you sort of were, so you were a Detroit Labs employee, but you were functionally working as though you were an employee of that other place, wherever that placement was. You went to their meetings, you went to their facilities, you essentially like answered and reported to like the management that they had on site. And so yeah, so I think that that's the difference between on-site is you work for Detroit Labs, but you functionally, you are essentially an acting member of whatever that other organization is. Did I miss the second part of the question?
Oh. I lost my mute button that time.
I was like, wait, was there more that I forgot to answer?
It was contagious. I lost my mute button that time. That was my bad. So the next question I have is exactly the same, but for one of our services team members. So I do want to ask Chrissy, because you did get that other question in the chat, if you want to answer that one as well and do like a dual parter. But tell me about a high level about services and what it's like working for them, as well as tell us about what a delivery lead even is.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say services kind of is changed. It looks a lot different now that a lot of us are still working from home. So in the before times, I would say services, we were at 1520 was the biggest difference. And we had a very strong community. Everyone we all get lunch together. We all met up throughout. There was different in-person things to kind of work through different problems or things like that, like different group hugs and huddles and things of that nature. As a delivery lead on the services side, you're working directly with a client on a project team, and you're working on you're amongst your project team. So a delivery lead is pretty much someone who wears a lot of hats. It's a mix of project management, some business analyst stuff, Scrum Master, and things of that nature. So pretty much just figuring out how to get a project from A to done, and removing obstacles for the team, or helping the team kind of tailor communication to the client so that they can work on building that type of relationship with them. I would definitely one of those companies where the developers or the dev team never interact with the clients and everything is just kind of thrown over the wall. So that is like super awesome. And yeah, so, you know, we kind of work in an agile-ish environment. So we are doing sprints, we're doing Kanban, and that's kind of how we're like tracking projects and making sure that we as a delivery lead are aware of what's going on day to day, and that if something is like trending a different direction, that we're able to have these conversations with our clients as early and soon as possible to mitigate risks across the board, and then everyone's happy.
Thank you so much for sharing. We are over time, but I have one more question that I think is really important for me to ask because of the nature of the event we're doing today and trying to kind of break down that wall between labs and these people who might be interested in working for us. And because I just picked on Landell and Chrissy for this one, I'll pick on Sean and Amit. What is some advice that you would give to someone who's considering applying to Detroit Labs? Sean, you want to go first?
Yeah. What is advice I would give? Be your authentic self. One really big thing for our applications, our hiring process in general, is very transparent to every single person who works at Labs. And everyone at Labs has a voice in that process. And one of the really big things that I find is that if I feel like someone is really, really guarded through the applications, through the interviews, I have a really hard time figuring out who this person is. And for anyone that's looked at it, our application is really, really long and very not focused on technical skills. And there's a reason for that, which is that we care so much about who our team members are. And it's the main focus of the application. Our first interview is all about who are you? We just basically sit down and have a casual chat almost for an hour. And it's so important to our process. And it's why we have such amazing people here. And so my advice would be that it's not always easy, but being as open and authentic as you can be in that process really helps us get to know who you are and understand not only would we want to have you as a team member, but will you be happy here? Because that's also very important to us. We don't want people to just come here because it's a job. We want people to come here and be happy. And so that, I think, is my advice.
Thank you for that. Amit, do you have any advice for anyone tonight who might want to apply to Detroit Lab?
Sure. So there is a lot of opportunity. Free food here. So please apply and have those. Just kidding. But there are a lot of opportunities. I think the work-life balance is great here. And I guess in our day-to-day life, we need this. That's the most important part. And don't be afraid to learn new things and to mention these things. So that's the one or two advice I want to give. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of those wonderful answers with us, panelists. It was awesome having you here, and I hate to kick you off before we get to all the questions, but there were just so many good answers for us to hear. To the chat, if you didn't get your question answered, that is okay. Some of our panelists might stick around for networking, so that might be a great opportunity for you to meet them one-on-one and ask them some of the questions that you had. But for now, I'm going to have my panelists leave. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us and for sharing a little bit about your background and experience. And once they're all out of here, I'm going to bring back Nicole and Pedro, and we're going to chat a little bit with all of you guys about jobs. What open jobs are available? What can you apply for? We want you to know what we have open right now, and we're going to tell you a little bit about the process and all that good stuff. Hey, Pedro, welcome back.
Hello.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi.
Wasn't the panel awesome?
That was great.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, let's get into talking about some job stuff. So we're going to tell our audience a little bit about what are the roles we have open? What's it like to apply at Detroit Labs? What are all the steps in the process so that they can be informed after they leave today and go fill out their application? So we're going to start with Nicole, who's going to tell us a little bit about the hiring process here at Detroit Labs. Go for it, Nicole.
Yeah, for sure. So I wanted to touch quickly too, because we just met some team members from onsite. We met some from services. That was on purpose because we do have different places that people work at Detroit Labs. And one thing that I always tell folks when they're thinking about applying here, and they're like, do I go onsite? Do I go services? Some people are happy doing both. Some people, we have on-site clients that are different from our services projects. So they might be really interested in working at a certain client space that services isn't working on. Some people may want to work at services so that they can always be moving to different projects or, get to work in the downtown Detroit 1520 office like Landell talked about. So the other thing I say is if you're like, I don't care, I just want to come work with you guys, you can apply to services or on-site. And with both processes, there are people in the company that look at all of the applications. So it's all human. It's not just a robot that's going to turn down your resume because you didn't have a keyword on there. So there are slightly different processes. There's different people looking at the services and the on-site so far, but there are people looking at all of it. So when Sean talks about being your authentic self, and you see those questions in either application, writing NA or a period or doesn't really let people get to know you. So that's where, when Sean mentioned that, I was like, yeah, that's where it comes in the application. But really, really quickly, just to talk a little bit again about services and on-site. So the biggest difference is that with a services project, you're working with the downtown Detroit, but now we have so many remote team members as of the last year, which has been cool. On big client projects, usually the client will come to us and they say, hey, we need a project built, and then we'll assemble a team like Nathan mentioned of designers, developers, quality engineer, delivery lead, and build the thing. We do a lot of native mobile app, a lot of large scale web application stuff too. In the past few years, services has also taken on tech proof of concepts, design sprints. We're constantly taking on new opportunities, like Nathan said, to be able to service our clients. And then onsite came about really because, as you all have seen, everybody talks about how amazing the people are here to work with. So a lot of those services clients we worked with in the early years, 6 years ago, came back to us. And they were like, hey, Labs, we have a thing we need built, but we have our own internal team, so we can't outsource the whole project to you. But your people were amazing to work with on that last project. Can you just send us a couple? Can you help have them join our team and help us grow out our products and our teams out? And we were like, let's try it. And so we've been growing out on-site ever since. And so there are opportunities on both sides, but wanted to take a moment to talk through the differences if you see that in the job title, and figure out which one might be right for you. And that's all I got, unless I left anything out.
No, that was great. Thanks for going through the differences between services and on-site in case anybody might be on the fence, and to let people know you're absolutely allowed to and encouraged to apply for both if they both apply to you. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to turn it over to Pedro to talk to us a little bit about what is it we even look for in a candidate when we're looking at resumes or doing our phone screen or any sort of those entry-level steps to the hiring process. What do we want to see?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm so happy Sean was able to touch on a little bit of this. But from our first contact, whether or not it's a phone screen or a first interview, We're not asking weird random questions like, what's your favorite color? Because that's not really relevant to your time, not really relevant to our time either. We really want to get to know you. So that is why we ask some thought-provoking questions. We want to know about you. We want to know about your experience. Through that first touch point, we really want to communicate the importance of getting to know applicants personally. Is this somebody that I'd want to work alongside? Is this somebody that I can go to bat for when it comes to trying to find a client for them? Other things we look for when it comes to any team member is a desire to learn. This is a huge one. I love hearing from potential team members the various ways they find to better themselves, if it's LinkedIn Learning or Codecademy, anything like that. Any kind of learning that takes place on their downtime. That's exciting to hear. That shows you that could be a potential team member who isn't afraid to work through ambiguity, who isn't afraid to start learning something new, maybe before a job even starts. Finally, I think one of the more important things is open communication that goes both ways. How can we overcome some of the barriers that job seekers often find when it comes to looking for a role? They come across lack of communication, unclear timelines, so on, and communication back our way. One of the things that I love is if a potential candidate comes to me and says, thanks for spending the time with me. I actually just accepted a job. For me, I get to celebrate that. That's awesome. I'm happy anytime somebody is able to find a role that fits for them, that works out best for them, because that means, hey, it might not work out right now, but leaves the door open for the future. Overall, what you can add to our company and what we can offer you as a job seeker are the most important things we consider when it comes to those first touch points for potential applicants.
Absolutely. Very eloquently put. Anything you want to add, Nicole?
Button. Yeah, no, I think Pedro touched on a lot of it, and I think about Nathan talking about customer service and all that, and I do think, we don't always get it perfect. But I think everyone on the hiring team at Detroit Labs cares just as much about finding great people as the people's experience moving through the process. And so, I do believe that people. Listen, interviewing is scary. And I think more so now when companies are interviewing, your interview that you give to is their first experience with you. And so thinking about how to create a customer service focused process for your candidates, because there is a lot of work. You have to apply, you got to fill out questions, resumes, all that. So how can the company provide an experience back? To show you that we appreciate your time through the process.
Absolutely. We wouldn't be where we are today without great people applying to us. So we need to take the time and care to make sure that those people feel appreciated throughout that process. Awesome. Thank you both for sharing. I'm going to chat a little bit now about the open roles that we have available. You're probably wondering at this point, okay, you've sold me. How do I apply? So I'm going to drop a link in the chat for everybody right now. This is the link to our careers page over on the Detroit Labs website. So here you will find a list of, I counted them, 18 open job roles covering a wide variety of different places that you could end up at labs. So I'm going to talk through a couple of them, kind of a high level overview. You're more than welcome to check out the link and go see way more detail about what each job is asking for in a candidate. But on both services and on-site, we're looking for mobile developers. So Android, iOS, we're looking for Flutter too, which is exciting and new for us. We're also looking for web developers. So we need both front end and back end, and that's across a variety of different frameworks and languages as well. We need React, we need Angular, we need Node, we need Java, we need Kotlin. There's a lot of things happening. So the more the merrier with the tech stacks there. We're also looking on the services side to hire a developer manager. So if you're somebody who is a more people skills person and you're looking for a managerial role, that is something that we're looking for. There's so much more to look at over there on that careers page. So please take a second, bookmark that so you can come back to it later because we're not done yet tonight. But that's just a little bit more info about the open roles that we have. And if you have any questions about the open roles, or if you look over the application and you're like, I'm not sure, I have questions, I don't know, stick around for the Talent Specialist Q&A, where we can answer your questions live about any of the application processes, any of the questions that you might see all of that good stuff. We officially have 15 minutes left together tonight. This is the part where we're not done yet, but I am going to say goodbye to everybody because I'm not sure who's going off to network and who's going to stay with us for the Q&A. So I want to thank each and every one of you for coming, for hearing us out about the jobs that we have, the experience of our employees, and for just taking the time to learn a little bit more about us. I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that this kind of helped to pull back that metaphorical curtain on who we are as a company and what we stand for and sort of what we do for our folks here at Detroit Labs. I know we have some questions coming in already, so I'm going to dismiss anybody who wants to go network right now. Go over to the left-hand side of your screen, that little handshake icon that you see, and join the networking. You are more than welcome to do that, and you can do that till the end of the night, and then you're free to go. If you're sticking with us here, the Talent Specialist Q&A is going to start right now. So we'll give people just a second to get over to networking. I'm going to go ahead and scroll through these questions that we've got coming in already. Feel free to ask them in the chat if you want your question to be public, or if you want to remain anonymous, use the Q&A feature, and I will not say your name. So feel free to ask away. Let's see here. How do we apply for apprenticeships?
So great question. I started typing that one, so I'll just take it. I was like, oh, we're doing Q&A. I can probably just answer it. So great question, Christine. So for the apprenticeship program, I believe on our website, when you click on the apprenticeships, there is like a button that will say notify me when we have an apprenticeship. And then once we announce our next one, it'll actually email you that we're doing that and the application's going live and all that. So the application's pretty similar to the services one with the GTKY, which is getting to know you. I don't know if we actually said that at all today. And yeah, so then you can fill out the application then.
Absolutely. A follow-up question that's sort of related. Any future plans for starting the Detroit Labs Bootcamp? Any entry-level jobs for bootcamp grads? So there's been a lot of talks about doing our apprenticeship program again, which, like Nicole had just talked about, apprenticeships, that's kind of like our version of like the bootcamp model. There have been talks about doing it. COVID kind of complicated that process a little bit and didn't allow us to have our apprenticeship class meet in person to do their coursework. But we want to do another one. And there's talks of those happening in the future again. So you can always join the mailing list for those, like Nicole mentioned, to keep it up to date with what's going on there. And then any entry-level jobs for bootcamp grads. I just did a scroll through the careers page. I don't see any junior level openings at the moment, but that is always changing. And if you guys want to jump in on that, Pedro and Nicole, feel free. Right now, I think a lot of what we're looking for is mid to senior level. But again, that is something that changes all the time when capacity opens up to take more junior candidates. We absolutely do that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Something that happens quite a bit when it comes to the on-site side of the business is the needs of our clients are always changing. So just because today I have a client that says, I'm looking for senior level developers, I don't want to talk to anyone below this many years. Tomorrow they might come back and say, I need juniors. I need to teach people, and I need them as soon as you can find them. That's one of the great things about being part of CoLabs, is being part of the network so that you can get those kinds of updates when we're talking about new jobs, or just to stay connected with any of the talent specialist team or the team members here at Detroit Labs to keep on top of those kinds of notifications. But yeah, that's the really great thing, that on either side of the business, that is something that we keep an eye on very closely as to what types of experience we're looking for. Because again, we want to make sure you're investing your time wisely and taking the time to interview with us. We want to make sure it's absolutely worth it for you.
Absolutely. We did have a couple questions come in through the Q&A, so I'm going to ask these ones anonymously. Someone asked, what happens at the end of a project? How does someone at Labs get assigned to a new project?
With that one, I see Nicole looking from her porch. With that,
go ahead, Pedro.
Oh, sure. It's a little bit different for both sides. When it comes to on-site, we always work in with any client that we're working with that there will be work for about 12 months at least. And after that, that comes the time for the candidate, the developer, whatever role they are, the Detroit Labs team member, to make a decision if they'd like to stay on board, if they would like to transfer to a different work site that matches up with their skill set and their experience. Or sometimes the client themselves says, we enjoyed working with you so much, we would like you to convert directly to our work site. No matter what the decision is there, we're here to support overall with what's going to work out best for your personal and career growth and development. For the services side, I know there is some place. We do have a vice president of operations, and she keeps track of all the project teams, who's where, what's going on. I would love to see the crazy map with red string that I'm sure she's got someplace in her office, either in the Ann Arbor office, the Detroit office, or at home. Because there's so much planning that goes into place of figuring out timelines for projects and who goes where at what time, what team needs what personnel. There's quite a bit to it, and that's something I'd like to pull the curtain back on, to see the red string map.
I just think of Pepe Silva, the Always Sunny episode, when you say that, and I just...
That's exactly right.
I would add to that too. So, she definitely has to fill projects, but then also she's really good at listening to the team. And if they're like, I've been on this project for a year and a half, I need a change. I want a different client. I want to roll off. Like, she works really hard to move chess pieces, around to make sure that folks are happy on their project as much as she can, which I always think is awesome. A lot of places are like, no, that's where you're working. Stay there.
Right. The next question we got in the Q&A is, does on-site work require travel, or is it online/remote or in Detroit? So this really depends from client to client. So some clients are like, yeah, people can work remote. Some clients are like, well, the nature of our work really does require people to be here in the office working directly with the team. So every client project is different. Part of our jobs as talent specialists is to help figure out what you're looking for out of your career and what you're looking for out of just your life in general. So if you're someone who's like, I really can only work remote, that is what works best for me, that's where I'm the most productive and comfortable, we're going to work with you to find a role that aligns with that, because we're not in the business of shoehorning any candidate into a position or a role or anything like that that does not work for them and what their wants and needs are. So the answer is yes and no. And as far as being in Detroit, some clients are, some clients aren't. Some clients are nearby. They're like Metro Detroit, Southfield, Auburn Hills. Some clients are on the other side of the country, and all of our people for those opportunities work remotely. So there's a wide variety kind of happening as far as that goes.
I would say too, just to add on, commute as a request is pretty rare. It's very, very, very minimal, but it could come up from time to time. But again, that's not something that's going to be a gotcha of day one. By the way, day two, you're traveling over here. It wouldn't be anything like that. That'd be something that we would disclose it probably within that first touch point that we're discussing the role with you.
Absolutely. All right, next question. We got so many, guys. This person said, you didn't mention any non-tech opportunities like the UI UX design or even a delivery lead available. Are those available or coming soon?
That is a great question. Right now, there is not a plan for us to bring on board any more of those roles, but that is something that we do look for as far as keeping people into our network, that we look for both for on-site and services. Just as I'd mentioned a little bit earlier, today the needs might be one thing, tomorrow the needs might be something else. Not to say that there's more flexibility on one side of the business, like on-site versus services, nothing like that. But there are those non-developer, non-tech roles that come up. I would definitely keep an eye on that careers page when they do. They're usually a hot item when they do pop up.
Yeah, and if you're someone who isn't necessarily looking to make a career change right this second, and you want to get in touch with one of us to already kind of start the process where you do a phone screen with us, even if we don't have a role available for you right now, we could have a role available for you tomorrow or next week or next month or whenever it happens to land in our lap, like it typically does. So if you want to get that process started, you can feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. If the other talent specialists are comfortable dropping their email in the chat, whatever it is you want to do to to get a hold of us, we can start that conversation with you now. That way, when that role becomes open, you can be the first person on our list where we reach out and we say, hey, we're hiring delivery leads. Let's get on it. So that is always an option.
It's one of my favorite options too, because like it really, especially with on-site, literally like 2 weeks ago, we're like, we'll never hire someone who does robots, and then we had a robot role pop up like the next day. We always get requests from our clients for UX UI, delivery leads. We just had 9 roles, I think, a month ago, and like, so we had a lot of delivery lead openings, but then we fill them, so now there's not. So, but there could be 9 more next week. So
definitely. The only other question we have in the Q&A right now, I'm getting back to the chat in a minute, but is, do you offer part-time opportunities?
No, not yet. Maybe one day. There's a short answer for that. Everything's all full-time salaried roles with labs, on-site and services. So that's one thing I think we didn't really touch on that's kind of unique, is all of our on-site roles are salaried as well. So, and they include benefits, 401k match, PTO. So they're not like, you know, short-term contract, send you somewhere with just like an hourly wage.
Yeah. Kayla Lawson in the chat's going to make me cry. She's one of my candidates currently, being just so sweet. Mike said the GTKY is intimidating. Kitty gave a really great response to that. But he also asked, what are you looking for in the GTKY and how can you stand out?
I'd say, just to give a little bit of context, we do have a team of people that reviews GTKYs, and they're made up of people from all different walks of Detroit Labs, which is really cool because, as we talked about a little bit earlier, it really is about getting to know you personally. Things that can make you stand out, not to be cliche or generic, but being very thoughtful and taking the time to really think about it. For example, I'm going to be completely honest here. Whenever there's a question that's something along the lines of like, can you tell us about a time that you experienced a failure or something like that? If you say, I've never experienced a failure, come on. Everyone's had times that they've failed at something or found an opportunity somewhere. If it's like a 1-sentence response, that's not going to be like something we're going to be wild about reading. I would say on the other side of it, we don't want to make you write a short story about the time that you received feedback and it was negative and how you felt about it. Just more of a high-level glimpse into who you are as a person. If you have the ability to self-identify your strengths, your opportunities, because as a job seeker, there's a certain part of it where you really are marketing yourself and you're really selling yourself to a company. One last thing I'll mention is really going into it with the attitude of, we are lucky as a company to find our applicants, and knowing that you're taking the time to do that. It's not something where it's like a quick, like, nope. As Nicole mentioned, it's not a system. It's not a robot. It's not a computer that's going through applications. It's people. So we're going to respect your time. If you're taking that time to fill out a GTKY, we're going to respect it, and we're going to take the time to evaluate it as thoroughly as we can.
Totally agree with you on that, Pedro. And I also want to draw some attention to the comment that Kitty left in the chat. Kitty said that she personally looks for honesty, curiosity, empathy, self-reflection, and desire to learn, which I think are big staple traits that a lot of folks across teams at Detroit Labs look for on a GTKY. My biggest one on that list is empathy, seeing that you are able to recognize the needs and help out with your teammates and just show them compassion and care and thought when you're interacting with them, without simply saying, oh, I'm an empathetic person. Tell me why, give me an example and show me that you really mean that you're saying that. So that's big for me. But Pedro, you're absolutely right about everything that you said as well.
I also, just on that comment to add in, so earlier Mike Tolser asked, is there one quality that all employees share? Mike, I would say it's probably those things that, maybe not one, that's 5, but I would say that's a lot of what we see across a lot of different individuals. And I love that they always say, like, at Labs, when you join the team, we look for culture add, not culture fit. So it's not like you in this GTKY, there's one thing or you have to be one type of person. No, we want different people from different backgrounds to bring their experiences to help shape our culture and help it grow. We're still growing a lot, 18 jobs. We're growing a lot, guys. So
we have a question in the Q&A that I'm excited to answer, so I'm going to ask it. This person said, as a recent bootcamp grad with no prior experience, do you have any advice on how to grow into a candidate Detroit Labs is looking for? Would the apprenticeship program be a good fit or redundant? Here's what I'll say about that. And this is a shameless self-plug. Collabs, our community of developers, you're attending an event hosted by us right now. I think that's a great way to start getting some experience outside of your workday that is valuable and kind of reflects what we're looking for in a candidate at Labs, right? So normally we host like a study hall type event where you can bring your personal project that you're working on, hack away at it with some other people in the community. But our Detroit Labs team members are there as mentors to help you with any blockers that you're facing, to give you advice and to actually teach you rather than just tell you what to do. So that's a great opportunity to get some of that learning. As far as would the apprenticeship program be a good fit or redundant, I think that's hard to say. It really depends on the value that you see in it, right? So the apprenticeship is typically a paid opportunity. So you get a stipend for participating in that. So that's nice. And at the end, oftentimes you receive a placement either at a client or with our services team at Detroit Labs. So if that's a stipulation of it and that's exciting to you and you don't mind, oh, I've already been through boot camp, but I'm going to do this thing, I don't think there's any issue with that. Pedro, Nicole, if you want to weigh in on that, feel free.
I think you really hit the nail on the head there. Like staying connected with us through collabs is a really great way to do that. With some of the study halls that we host, that's a great way for you to network and also get some help on anything you might be working on for fun. Anything that's that you're doing extracurricular, I'd say. And just like finding ways to keep in touch with us. Like we had mentioned earlier, if you're in a point of your career where you want to start the process right now, but you know it might not be tomorrow that you're going to be changing jobs, that's cool. Chat with you, we can still get the process going so that when the time is right for you, we're able to move quickly.
Absolutely. The last question of the night, we have nothing left in the Q&A, and the last one I see in the chat is, how long does the interview process usually take?
I'm going to let Nicole take this one.
So I have like 3 thoughts. Sorry if I'm like stopping. I like to think that the interview process can take as long as you want it to take. Some people are like shopping for jobs, and so they want it to take a little bit longer. Some are like, no, I need a new job now. I want a new job now, and it can move a little bit quicker. To also give you some like idea of what the interview processes are. So with the services side, and this may actually be more, we're constantly trying to find better ways to do our interview process and do our application process. So I'm going to describe it as it is today, but it very well might change or evolve in the next few months to try to make it more streamlined and a better experience. So services, you fill out your getting to know you, and the team reviews that. Usually that takes about a week because we want people to actually like review it and read it like we've been talking about. From there, if they decide to move forward, they'll do a first interview, which is a little bit more of like a like interpersonal, behavioral. There's no tech questions in there. And then if the first interview goes well, there's a final technical interview where they'll, at least for developers, like send you some homework to work on, like a coding challenge, and bring it in and show it off. For on-site, we have a shortened GTKY. So usually ours is like, I don't know, 3 to 5 questions. It's pretty short. And one of the talent specialists, if we decide to move forward, we will do a first phone screen, which is about 30 to 45 minutes. And that's more about your experience, your backgrounds. It's a little bit of tech, a little bit of interpersonal. And then from there, if that goes well, depending on, because all of our clients have their own interview processes. So depending on what the client requirement is, there could be either a code challenge or a technical phone screen with Detroit Labs based on what the client needs to see. And then if you pass those, then usually the clients will want 1 to 2 interviews of their own, and that could be phone call, it could be coding, it could be technical conversation. So the talent specialist team will prep you for all of it. We'll give you all the info. We can, if you want to practice interview questions with us, we're there to support with it. But that's not a short answer, but it's a lot of the answer. So
no, it's important to go through it all. So thank you for being thorough. A lot of folks I see are signing off for the night, so I think it's probably time for us to get going too. I dropped my LinkedIn in the chat if anyone wants to connect. I saw that Pedro did the same. I also dropped my email, as did Pedro. So if you want to get in touch with us and get that process started, feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to talk to you. That's our whole job, and it's what we love the most about what we do. I see Devin in the chat. Hi, Devin. But anyway, thank you all so much for joining us. If you want to, I have one more link for you. I need you all to go join Collabs. And I need you to do that for me because I want to see all of your faces again. And that's very important to me. So I'm going to drop this in the chat for you right now. So you just attended a Collabs event, but it was through Hopin. Normally we do our events on Discord. So if you go to that link that I just shared in the chat, you can sign up to be part of our Collabs mailing list. I promise I won't spam you with anything. I will just let you know when there's new events coming out. So you can join us for those over on our Discord instead. So we're going to do Study Hall next month. I hope to see some of you there. You guys have a great night. Thank you so much, Pedro and Nicole, for joining me and for co-hosting with me. This was so much fun. Yeah, keep in touch. Everybody be safe, and we'll catch you next month. Bye.